They cut down my trees for a better view, so I shut down the only road that led to their front doors. That's the short answer I give at bars when someone says, "No way you actually did that." The long answer starts on a Tuesday that felt normal enough to be cruel, the kind of day your life slides on like a smooth stone and you don't notice the crack until you stumble. I was half a turkey sandwich into my lunch when Mara called breathy and sharp like she'd been running or crying. Mara doesn't call during work unless someone's bleeding or the house is on fire or something lawyerly and bad is happening. "You need to come home," she said, and there was that sound people make when they're trying not to cry into the phone. I didn't hang up properly, didn't shut my laptop. I just shoved my papers into my bag and drove like the road would change if I took too long. The neighborhood road that leads to my place winds through a pine hollow. It smells like cold sap and old memories. When I turned onto the drive, I felt it before I saw it, the way space looks when something that belonged there is gone. Like when someone peels a painting off a wall and the rectangle of unstained paint stares back at you. The 6 sycamores along the east edge of my property were gone. Not pruned, not snapped by a storm carved away. My dad planted 3 of those trees when I was small. He would let me dig with him, hand me the watering can, tell me to keep it straight. The other 3 grew into a green wall that kept the hill up top from peering into our backyard. Now pale stumps marked where their lives had been. The wood chips had been raked up, branches hauled away as if whoever did it wanted the act forgotten. Mara was by the fence, jaw set, arms wrapped like she'd tethered herself to the land. "I tried to stop them," she said. I asked how. She told me there were 2 trucks guys in orange shirts and hard hats and a clipboard with a work order. "Who signed off?" I asked. "The association," she said. That name sounded like a place where people practice outrage professionally. I found a business card under a wiper blade. A tree crew had been hired on an order to clear the overlook. I called. The man on the phone was polite in that way that smells like litigation. "We had an order from the association," he said. "They claimed the trees were encroaching on community land and blocking their view corridor." "View corridor," I repeated, tasting the phrase. Like my trees were just ingredients in someone else's sunset. An hour later, Daniel, the HOA president, called. He sounded like a man who perfected smoothness in front of glass windows. "We're reviewing the survey," he told me. "If a mistake was made, we're prepared to reimburse you." Reimburse me. For what? For the 6 trunks turned into stumps. For childhood summers. He offered reasonable compensation. And the sentence hung between us like a thin wire. I didn't tell Daniel that the access road cuts across the corner of my property. I didn't tell him about Walter Jennings, the man who owned the land before me and who 20 years earlier shook hands with the developer and let that asphalt cross his ground verbally. Walter's handshake died with him. Paper doesn't let ghost promises live. I called a surveyor, scheduled an attorney, and did what people do when they want to turn a gut feeling into a legal fact. I traced property lines on old maps, arguing with myself over whether this was about principle or pride. The survey showed something precise and stubborn. My deed extended 15 feet beyond the edge of the asphalt. Not a sliver, a meaningful strip. Carl, the surveyor, tapped stakes, sprayed neon paint on the grass, and when he pulled off his gloves, he said, "They've been using this for a while." I still remember my dad's hands on those trunks, gnarled. Patient, teaching me to be careful to tamp the earth down so the roots would hug what we planted. My mom would bring lemonade out and we'd sit on the step and watch the leaves clap in the evening breeze like an audience. Those memories are small and stubborn. They don't pack into a check. My attorney Denise gave me the kind of calm that cuts through outrage. "There's no recorded easement," she said. "They don't have title to use your land, and prescriptive easement needs 20 years. 5 years isn't enough." That legal phrase landed like a lifeline. But she warned, "Block access and they'll escalate. Courts sometimes order temporary access while they sort it out." I looked at the stumps. "Good," I said. "We put up a fence. Not a pretty fence. Industrial chain link, 8 feet tall, heavy duty with a lock that clicked like a verdict." The crew asked if I was sure. I told them not really, but do it anyway. When the first Range Rover rolled up and the driver realized the road stopped with my gate, people began to pile up, a procession of SUVs like a poorly coordinated valet line. Phone calls rained in. Daniel snapped, "What the hell are you doing?" I said, "You can't get through." He threatened legal action. I said I'd spoken to Denise. Social media lit up. Someone from the hill posted a photo of the fence, and suddenly I was either a hero or a petty villain. Mara laughed at the "you're trending" notifications, but the jokes didn't land. I felt an undercurrent, the town's pulse, where people became footnotes to someone else's plan. They weren't the ones who signed off on the saw crews. They were trying to get home. When we bolted the gate shut, the metallic click echoed across the hollow and sounded louder than I expected. A single small sound that felt enormous. Drivers slowed, phones came out, and someone in a golf shirt walked down the slope to tell me I was holding people hostage. I told him hostage situations usually involve worse fashion and an actual demand, but that didn't help. It only made him angrier. Then a knock at my door one evening changed the frame. A woman stood on my porch, hair pulled back, eyes tired the way parenting makes eyes tired. "Hi," she said. "I'm Rachel. I live on Alder Crest." She told me about her son, about an ambulance that had trouble getting through the day my fence first went up. "He's okay," she said, but it scared me. Her voice made the story less ledger and more human. She said most residents didn't know about the tree removal. The board made decisions quietly and sent emails afterward. She wasn't there to demand the gate come down. She asked if we could fix this without making enemies. Her presence was the twist. She wasn't an enemy. She was another person caught in the crossfire. Calls from the association shifted from threats to bland politeness when Denise started sending crisp letters. Daniel's voice softened over time. He started showing up in work boots instead of loafers, carrying documents instead of smirks. There were tense minutes when I wondered if I had become the villain in my own story. Then there were moments of small grace. A board member who admitted off the record that they'd been blindsided by the contractor. A teenager who left a handwritten note apologizing for how the online crowd was treating me. Negotiations shifted. I asked for full replacement of the trees, mature specimens professionally planted with a survival guarantee. I asked for a written apology, clear recognition that the association had violated my property, and for a recorded easement drafted by my attorney with access fees, retroactive and fair. I set a number that made people blink. The board sputtered. They flinched at the fee they countered. They argued about principle. A few weeks felt like an era in county politics. Denise drew the lines tight, Carl rechecked stakes, and Daniel found himself drafting apologies instead of threats. The board voted. The agreement was recorded. New trees arrived, not my father's, but heavy-rooted, trunk-thick leaves, glossy and new. Planting day felt oddly ceremonial. The crew maneuvered trees like they were carrying a small future. We planted them with the same care my dad had taught me, tamp water, stake, promise. Rachel stood beside me and touched a trunk like it was a promise. Daniel handed me a folder with the apology inside. It was direct, admitting they failed to verify boundaries and remove trees without permission. It wasn't theatrical justice, but it was repair. People ask if I'm proud, if I feel guilty, if I would do it again. Maybe I would. Maybe I wouldn't. What surprised me was the quiet satisfaction, not the monthly checks that arrive like clockwork. Though those are part of the settlement, it's the feeling of being seen. For years, decisions were made uphill and trickled down. My land was treated like scenery. Locking that gate forced a conversation. The new trees are settling. When wind moves through them, it's not exactly as before. Younger leaves sound different, but there's a new rhythm. Rachel and I talk. Her son runs in my yard, sometimes plunging his hands into fresh mulch like he's making a memory. Denise checks in occasionally. Daniel drives by and slows. So here's what I want to ask you. If someone cut down something that mattered to you, not just financially, but as part of your life, how far would you go to put it back? Would you accept a quiet check? Or would you lock the gate and make them notice your name? Is standing up for yourself protection? Or is it pride masquerading as principle? Tell me where you land. Share a story if you've had something taken from you, or if you've ever been the one watching a gate and thinking about how to get home. Who was right and who was wrong, because sometimes the view from the bottom of the hill tells the truer story.